The Iliad by Homer, Book 19. You're listening to Classics Made Clear, classic texts translated with accuracy and accessibility for today's listener. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share these videos with your friends. Dawn in her saffron robe rose up from the streams of ocean, bringing her light to both gods and mortal men. Then Thetis came to the ships, carrying the gifts of the god. She found her dear son lying there, holding Patroclus, weeping with a sharp cry, while many of his companions stood around him mourning. The shining goddess stood among them, took her son's hand, called him by name, and spoke to him. "My child, though we grieve for him, we must let him lie there, since he was struck down first by the will of the gods. But you, take from me the glorious armor of Hephaestos, beautiful armor such as no man has ever worn on his shoulders." So she spoke, and set the armor down before Achilles. All its finely worked pieces rang out loudly. Fear seized all the Myrmidons, and none dared to look straight at it, but shrank back. Only Achilles looked, and as he did, his anger grew stronger. His eyes shone fiercely beneath his brows like blazing fire. Yet he was glad as he held in his hands the bright gifts of the god. When he had filled his heart with looking at the detailed armor, he spoke to his mother in swift words. "My mother, the god has given me this armor, the work of immortals. No mortal man could have made it. Now I will arm myself in it. But I am deeply afraid for the strong son of Menoetios, that flies may enter into the wounds cut by bronze, and breed worms in him, and make his body foul, since the life has left him, and that all his flesh may rot." Then the goddess Thetis of the shining feet answered him, "My child, I will keep away from him the swarming flies that feed on the bodies of men who have died. Even if he lies there for a full year, still his flesh will remain firm, or even better than before. But you, go and call the fighting Achaeans into assembly. Give up your anger against Agamemnon, shepherd of the people, and quickly arm yourself for battle. Put your strength on." So she spoke, and filled him with bold courage. Then she poured ambrosia and red nectar through the nostrils of Patroclus, so that his flesh would remain whole. Then brilliant Achilles went along the shore of the sea, shouting a terrible cry, and he stirred up the fighting Achaeans, even those who had stayed before by the ships, the helmsmen and those who handled the steering oars, and the stewards who gave out food. These also came to the assembly, because Achilles had appeared again after staying away so long from the painful battle. 2 of them came limping, servants of Ares, Tydeus' son, strong in battle, and brilliant Odysseus, leaning on their spears, for they still had painful wounds. They came and sat down in the front of the gathering. Last of all came Agamemnon, lord of men, wounded, since Coon, son of Antenor, had struck him with a bronze spear in the fierce fighting. And when all the Achaeans had gathered together, Achilles of the swift feet stood up among them and spoke. "Son of Atreus, was this really better for both of us, you and me, that we, for the sake of a girl, fought each other in a bitter, heart-eating anger? I wish Artemis had killed her with an arrow beside the ships on the day when I destroyed Lionessos and took her. Then not so many Achaeans would have bitten the endless dust under enemy hands, while I stayed away in anger. This was better for Hector and the Trojans, but I think the Achaeans will remember our quarrel for a long time. Still, let us leave these things behind us, though we are grieved, and force down the anger in our hearts. Now I will end my anger, It is not right for me to stay angry forever. Come then, quickly urge the long-haired Achaeans into battle, so that I may go against the Trojans and see whether they still wish to camp by the ships. I think some of them will gladly bend their knees in rest, whoever escapes alive from the war under our spears." So he spoke, and the well-armed Achaeans were glad when the great-hearted son of Peleus gave up his anger. Then Agamemnon, lord of men, spoke to them from where he sat, without standing up among them. "My friends, heroes, Darnans, servants of Ares, when a man stands to speak, it is right to listen, and not to interrupt. Even for a skilled speaker, this is difficult. In a loud crowd, how can anyone hear or speak? Even a clear-voiced man is hindered. I will speak to the son of Peleus, but the rest of you Argives listen also and understand my words well. Many times the Achaeans have spoken this against me and blamed me. But I am not at fault. It was Zeus and fate and the Erinnys who walks in darkness. That savage blindness which was put into my heart in the assembly on that day when I myself took away the prize of Achilles. But what could I do? It is the God who brings all things to their end. Delusion is the elder daughter of Zeus, who leads all astray. She is deadly. Her feet are soft. She does not walk on the ground, but moves over the heads of men, harming them, and she traps one after another. For even Zeus himself was once deceived, though he is said to be the greatest of both gods and men. Hera, though she was a woman, tricked him with her cunning on the day when Alcmene was about to give birth to the strong Heracles in well-built Thebes. Zeus, boasting, spoke among all the gods. "Listen to me, all gods and all goddesses, so that I may speak what my heart urges within me. Today the goddess of childbirth will bring a man into the light who will rule over all those around him, one who comes from my bloodline." But Hera, thinking deceitfully, said to him, "You will not make this come true. Come now, swear to me a great oath, Lord of Olympus, that the one who is born this day, who falls between a woman's feet, from your bloodline, he shall rule over all those around him." So she spoke, and Zeus did not see her trick, but swore a great oath, and so he was deeply deceived. Then Hera rushed away and left the peak of Olympus, and quickly came to Argos of Achaea, where she knew the strong wife of Sthenelus, descendant of Perseus, was. She was carrying a dear son, and he was in his 7th month. But she brought the child out into the light too soon, and made him be born early, while she stopped the childbirth of Alcmene, and held back the birth pains. Then she herself went and brought the message to Zeus, son of Cronos. "Father Zeus of the bright thunderbolt, I will speak a word for your heart. A great man has now been born, who will rule over the Argives. Eurystheus, son of Sthenelus, of the line of Perseus, your own blood. It is fitting for him to rule over the Argives." So she spoke, and sharp grief struck deep in his heart. At once he seized Delusion by her shining hair in his anger, and swore a mighty oath that she would never again come back to Olympus and the starry sky. Delusion, who leads all astray. With that, he whirled her around in his hand and threw her down from the starry heaven, and she quickly came among the works of men. And Zeus was always groaning over her whenever he saw his dear son doing shameful tasks set by Eurystheus. So it was with me also, when great Hector of the shining helmet was killing the Argives by the ships. I could not forget that delusion by which I was first misled. But since I was blinded, and Zeus took away my understanding. I am willing now to make things right, and to give back many gifts. So come, rise up for battle, and stir the rest of the people. I will give you all the gifts that brilliant Odysseus promised you yesterday in your shelter. Or if you wish, wait a little, even though you are eager for war, while my men bring the gifts from my ship, so that you may see that I give you worthy gifts." Then Achilles of the swift feet answered him, "Son of Atreus, most honored king of men, Agamemnon, you may give these gifts if you wish, as is right. Or keep them for yourself. But now let us turn our minds to battle at once. It is not right to stay here wasting time or delaying, since there is still a great task to be done. Let a man once again see Achilles among the front fighters, with his bronze spear destroying the ranks of the Trojans. Let each of you remember this, and fight the man before him." Then resourceful Odysseus answered him, "Not that way, even though you are a great fighter, godlike Achilles. Do not drive the sons of the Achaeans toward Ilion to fight the Trojans while they are hungry. The battle will not be short once the lines of men clash and the god breathes strength into both sides. Instead, tell the Achaeans by their swift ships to take food and wine, for these give strength and courage. A man cannot fight all day until sunset if he has no food. Even if his heart is eager for battle, his limbs will grow heavy without him noticing, and hunger and thirst will catch up with him and weaken his knees. But when a man has eaten well and drunk wine, he can fight all day against his enemies. His heart is bold within him, and his limbs do not tire until all are ready to leave the battle. So come, send the men away, and tell them to prepare a meal. As for the gifts, let Agamemnon, lord of men, bring them into the middle of the assembly, so that all the Achaeans may see them with their own eyes, and your heart may be satisfied. And let him stand up among the Argives and swear an oath to you that he never went into her bed and never lay with her, as is the way between a man and a woman. And let your own heart be satisfied within you. After that, let him make things right with you in his shelter with a rich meal, so that nothing owed to you is lacking. And you, son of Atreus, be more just with another man from now on. For it is no shame for a king to make things right with a man, when he himself was the first to be angry." Then the lord of men, Agamemnon, answered him, "Son of Laertes, I am glad to hear your words. You have spoken fairly and set everything out in order. I am willing to swear to all this, and my heart tells me to do it. I will not swear falsely before the gods. Let Achilles stay here for now, even though he is eager for battle, and let the rest of you remain gathered here until the gifts come from my shelter, and we make firm oaths. And to you, Odysseus, I give this command. Choose the best young men from all the Achaeans and bring the gifts from my ship, all that we promised yesterday, to Achilles, and bring the women also. And let Talthybios prepare a boar in the wide camp of the Achaeans, to be sacrificed to Zeus and Helios." Then Achilles of the swift feet answered him, "Son of Atreus, most honored king of men, Agamemnon, you should deal with these things at another time, when there is a pause in the fighting and the anger in my chest is not so strong. But now men lie torn apart. Those whom Hector, son of Priam, struck down when Zeus gave him glory. And you urge us to eat. No, I would urge the sons of the Achaeans to fight now, hungry and unfed, and later when the sun goes down. We will prepare a great feast when we have paid back the insult. But before that, no food or drink will go down my throat. Since my companion is dead, he lies in my shelter, torn by sharp bronze, stretched out by the doorway, while his companions mourn around him. These things are not in my heart. What I care about is killing and blood, and the hard groaning of men in battle." Then resourceful Odysseus answered him, "Son of Peleus, Achilles, greatest by far of the Achaeans, you are stronger than I am with the spear, by no small measure. But I might surpass you in wisdom, since I was born before you and have learned more things. So let your heart endure to listen to my words. Men quickly have their fill of battle, where the bronze scatters the most straw upon the ground, and the harvest is smallest, when Zeus, who directs the war of men, tips the balance. The Achaeans cannot mourn a dead man by refusing food. Too many fall day after day, one after another. When would anyone get a break from his labor? We must bury the one who dies, after we have wept for him on that day, with hearts that must endure. But those who are left from the hateful work of war must remember food and drink, so that we may fight even more strongly against our enemies, without stopping, with tireless bronze upon our bodies. Let no one hang back waiting for another call to battle. Such delay will be harmful for anyone left by the ships of the Argives. Instead, let us all go forward together and stir up fierce war against the Trojans, breakers of horses." He spoke, and went with the sons of noble Nestor, and with Meges son of Phyleus, and Thoas, and Meriones, and Lycomedes son of Creon, and Melanippus. They went to the shelter of Agamemnon, son of Atreus. As soon as the order was given, the work was done. They brought from the shelter 7 tripods, as he had promised, and 20 shining cauldrons, and 12 horses. They also led out 7 women skilled in fine work, and the 8th was Briseis of the fair cheeks. Odysseus weighed out 10 full talents of gold, and led the way, while the young men of the Achaeans carried the other gifts. They placed all these in the middle of the assembly, and Agamemnon stood up. Talthybios, with a voice like a god's, stood beside the shepherd of the people, holding a boar in his hands. Then the son of Atreus drew the knife with his hands, the one that always hung by the great sheath of his sword, and cut hairs from the boar, lifting his hands to Zeus in prayer. All the Argives sat in silence, each in his place, and listened to their king. And as he prayed, he spoke, looking up into the wide sky. "Let Zeus be my witness first, highest and best of the gods, and earth and the sun, and the Furies who beneath the earth punish men who swear false oaths, that I have never laid a hand on the girl Briseis, not to go to her bed, nor for any other reason. She stayed untouched in my shelter. But if any of this is false, may the gods give me many sufferings, whatever they give to those who swear falsely." So he spoke, and with ruthless bronze he cut the boar's throat. Then Talthybios took the body and swung it out into the great sea, and threw it, spinning, into the grey sea for the fish to eat. Then Achilles stood up among the war-loving Achaeans and spoke to them. "Father Zeus, you give men great delusions. Without you, the son of Atreus would never have stirred the anger in my heart, nor taken the girl from me against my will. But somehow Zeus wished death to come to many of the Achaeans. Now go and take your meal, so that we may gather ourselves for battle." So he spoke, and quickly broke up the assembly. The men scattered, each to his own ship. The proud Myrmidons took care of the gifts, and carried them to the ship of godlike Achilles. They placed them in the shelters, seated the women, and the attendants drove the horses into the herd. Then Briseis, like golden Aphrodite, when she saw Patroclus torn by sharp bronze, threw herself over him and cried out loudly. With her hands she tore at her breasts, her soft neck, and her beautiful face. Weeping, the woman who was like a goddess spoke. "Patroklos, most dear to my sorrowing heart, I left you alive when I went away from the shelter, but now I return to find you dead, lord of the people. So for me, sorrow always follows sorrow. The husband my father and honored mother gave me, I saw him lying torn by sharp bronze before my city, and my 3 brothers, born to the same mother as me, all went down to destruction on the same day. And yet you would not let me grieve when swift Achilles killed my husband and destroyed the city of godlike minds. You would not let me weep, but said you would make me the wedded wife of godlike Achilles, that you would make me the true, lawful wife of Achilles, and take me in the ships to Phthia, and hold a wedding among the Myrmidons. So now I weep for you without ceasing in your death. You were always kind." So she spoke, weeping, and the women around her groaned in sorrow for Patroklos, though each one grieved for her own troubles. Then the elders of the Achaeans gathered around Achilles, begging him to eat, but he refused, groaning deeply. "I beg you, if any of my dear companions will listen to me, do not urge me to satisfy my heart with food or drink, since terrible grief has come upon me. I will wait until the sun goes down and endure, no matter what." So he spoke and sent the other kings away, but the 2 sons of Atreus stayed with him, and brilliant Odysseus, and Nestor, and Idomeneus, and the old horseman Phoenix, trying to comfort him in his sorrow. But his heart would not be comforted until he entered into the mouth of bloody war. Remembering Patroklos, he groaned deeply and spoke. "Once unhappy one, dearest of all my companions, you yourself would set a good meal before me in my shelter, quickly and eagerly, whenever the Achaeans were rushing to bring sorrowful war against the Trojans, tamers of horses. But now you lie here torn, and my heart is empty of food and drink, though they are here before me, because I long for you. Nothing worse than this could ever happen to me, not even if I heard that my father had died, who now, I think in Phthia, sheds gentle tears for the loss of such a son, while I fight the Trojans in a foreign land for the sake of dreadful Helen, nor even if I heard of my dear son, who is being raised in Skyros, if godlike Neoptolemos is still alive. Before this, my heart in my chest had hoped that I alone would die here in Troy, far from horse-pasturing Argos, while you would return to Phthia so that you could take my son from Skyros in a fast black ship and show him everything, my possessions, my servants, and my great high-roofed house. For by now I think that Peleus must either be dead or barely still alive, worn down by hateful old age, always waiting for the bitter news that I have died." So he spoke, weeping, and the elders groaned around him, each remembering what he had left behind in his own home. And as Zeus, son of Cronos, saw them mourning, he pitied them, and at once spoke to Athena. "My child, have you completely abandoned your man? Is there no longer any care in your heart for Achilles? There he sits by the ships with upright prows, grieving for his dear companion, while the others have gone to eat, but he is fasting and unfed. Go to him, and pour nectar and sweet ambrosia into his chest, so that hunger does not overcome him." So he spoke, and stirred Athena, who was already eager. She went down from the sky like a long-winged, sharp-crying hawk, rushing through the bright air. Meanwhile, the Achaeans were arming throughout the camp. She poured nectar and sweet ambrosia into the chest of Achilles, so that the painful weakness of hunger would not come upon his knees. Then she herself went back to the strong house of her father. and the Achaeans were gathering away from the ships as when thick snowflakes fall from Zeus, cold beneath the blast of the north wind from the bright sky. So then, in great numbers, helmets shining bright were carried out from the ships, and shields with heavy centres, and strong breastplates, and ash spears. The gleam rose up to the sky, and all the earth shone around them with the flashing of bronze, and a great noise rose under the feet of the men. In the midst of them, brilliant Achilles was arming himself. There was a grinding of his teeth, and his eyes shone like blazing fire. His heart was filled with unbearable grief, and raging against the Trojans, he put on the gifts of the god, the armor that Hephaestus had made for him. First he fastened the beautiful greaves on his legs, fitted with silver clasps. Then he put on the breastplate over his chest. After that, he slung the bronze sword over his shoulders with silver studs, and took up the great, strong shield, and from it a shining light spread far, like the moon. As when a light appears to sailors from a burning fire far out at sea, when it blazes high on the mountains in a lonely place, and storms carry them unwilling over the fish-filled sea far from their loved ones. So the light from Achilles' beautiful, finely made shield flashed up into the sky. Then he lifted the helmet and set it on his head, heavy and bright. It shone like a star, and the golden horsehair crest streamed around it, which Hephaestus had set thick upon the ridge. And brilliant Achilles tested himself in his armor to see if it fit him well, and if his strong limbs moved freely. It felt like wings upon him, and lifted up the shepherd of the people. Then he drew out from its place the spear of his father, and took up the great, heavy, strong spear, so heavy that no other of the Achaeans could lift it. But Achilles alone knew how to handle it. It was the ash spear from Pelion, which Chiron had cut for his father from the heights of the mountain, to be death for warriors. Then Automedon and Alcimos set about them the horses. They yoked them, fastened the fine straps around them, put the bits in their jaws, and pulled the reins tight back toward the well-made chariot. Automedon leapt up into the chariot with the shining whip in his hand, and behind him Achilles, armed in all his gear, climbed up, blazing like the sun. And he shouted terribly to the horses of his father, "Xanthos and Balios, far-famed sons of Podarge, make sure this time to bring your driver safely back to the Danaans when we are done with the fighting. Do not leave him dead on the field, as you did Patroclus." Then from under the yoke the swift horse Xanthos answered him. He lowered his head, and his long mane fell down along the yoke and touched the ground. The white-armed goddess Hera gave him a voice, and he spoke. "We will bring you back safely this time, mighty Achilles. But your day of death is near, and it is not we who are to blame, but a great God and strong fate. It was not because we were slow or careless that the Trojans stripped the armor from Patroclus' shoulders, but because the best of the gods, the son of fair-haired Leto, killed him among the front fighters and gave the glory to Hector. As for us, we could run as fast as the blast of the west wind, which they say is the swiftest of all things. But still, it is your fate to be brought down by a god and a man." When he had spoken, the Furies stopped his voice, but Achilles, troubled deeply, spoke to him. "Xanthos, why do you speak of my death? This is not your place. I know well myself that it is my fate to die here, far from my dear father and mother. But even so, I will not stop until I have driven the Trojans to their fill of war." So he spoke, and with a great cry he drove his swift horses forward into the front lines.
You're listening to Classics Made Clear.
classic texts translated with accuracy and accessibility for today's listener. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share these videos with your friends.